Hi, my name is Jim Fox from Fox Lawson & Associates. What I'd like to do over the next couple of minutes is go through the questionnaire that we're asking you to complete for the classification and compensation study. Now this questionnaire is a word fillable document, so every one of the gray spaces that you see on the questionnaire, all you need to do is double click or just click on that gray space, and it will either open a text box where you can type in the answer, or it will reveal a drop-down menu. So let's go through each one of the questions. The first one is employee information. Should be fairly simple. Your name, the day that you completed it, your official job title, your work phone in case that we need to get a hold of you to ask questions about your questionnaire, and if you have an email that we can also, perhaps we might want to email you to ask a question about your questionnaire as well. There's another item here, it's called time and current position. What we're asking you to here is just tell us approximately how many years you've been in this position. And the only reason that I'm asking this is that if we have several questionnaires on the same job from several different employees, and you've been in the job just 3 months, but there are other employees that have been in the job for longer than a year, for example, we might want to talk to the people that have been in the job for more than a year, because it's likely that they will have experienced all of the different issues that go on within the job. So it doesn't have to be accurate. That's the only reason that we're going to use that information, so please just give me some approximate information there. Then we're asking you to fill out information about your immediate supervisor's name, their official job title, their phone and email, and their supervisor's information as well. Now item 2 is the position summary. In this case, what we're asking for is a 1 to 3 sentence summary about what your job is, the purpose of your job within the district. Now this doesn't have to be a lengthy explanation, it's simply 1 to 3 sentences to describe essentially what the purpose of your job is. Some people find it helpful to complete this at the end of the questionnaire after they have completed all of the other questions, because it is essentially a summary. Now the other cue that you can use here is if I were to ask you what you do within the Des Moines Public Schools and you tell me what your job title is, and then I scratch my head and say, well, what is that? The next couple of sentences that you tell me is probably what you'd put on that question. On item 3, on the second page, supervisory responsibilities. Now, there are 3 boxes here, and the question is if you supervise other employees. In our definition, supervision means that you sign the performance evaluation forms of another employee. If you do that, then you have met the definition of a supervisor for this questionnaire, and you would answer the next couple of questions accordingly. If you supervise a number of people, we're asking you the full-time equivalents, and if there's a different count between the number of full-time equivalents and the number of people, then give us that information as well. On item 4, the organization chart, what we would like you to do is put in these spaces. In the first box, your boss's job title. Then in the next box, which is titled your position, it would be your job title. If you supervise other people, then the next couple of boxes would be your subordinates, their job titles. Now we've provided a generic organization chart, and hopefully this will help in most cases. However, if this is not sufficient, you can always copy another organization chart that is more accurate for your unit, which identifies the information that we're asking for, and you can attach it to this document if you will. Item 5 on page 3 is the essential duties. Now what we're asking here is what do you do? But there are several components of information that we're looking for. The first is what do you do? We call those essential duties. Now when you do those things, you probably need to make certain decisions before you can act on what you are required to perform. So we'd like to know what those decisions are. The next column is the frequency, and that is daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, or occasionally. And we're asking you to tell me this over a year's period of time. So this would be a calendar year's period of time. Finally, in the percent of time, we're asking you to tell me approximately how much time you spend on that essential duty. Now, I don't expect you to be very accurate about this, so I'm asking you to do this in increments of 5%. So 5%, 10%, 15, 20%, those sorts of things. I'm not interested in the exact percentage. What I am interested in is the relative difference between one the amount of time you spend on one duty and the amount of time you spend on another duty. Again, this should be over a year's period of time, a calendar year's period of time. And while I know some of you only have a school year or a shortened work year in terms of calendar, what I'd like you to do is do that over a year's period of time. Now, this should add up to a 100%. I also want to give you a couple of clues about how to complete this. We've given you 10 spaces, and for most jobs, that should be sufficient because we're asking for you to tell us the essential duties. Not all of the things that you do, but the essential duties that create the core purpose of your job. And normally, most jobs can be described in 3 to 5 duties rather than 10. Now, let me give you an example of my job. I have 1,000 things to do, like many of you. And I do that because nobody else seems to do that. So at any given day in our office, we have 5 people in my physical location. You'll be seeing me on a ladder, screwing in light bulbs. You'll also be seeing me fill out federal and state reports. I'll also be making sure that the janitors have cleaned the office completely, that our computers are up and running, that the network is running, the phone system is running, and that we are responding to emails, our software is up to date, the carpets are clean, supplies are ordered, and quite frankly, I think I'm the only one who ever puts paper in the copy machine. So all of those things I do because most other people in my office will not do that. But that's not what defines my job. My job can be summarized in 2 essential duties, and that is bidding on projects to perform for public sector organizations to do classification compensation work, and the second duty is to perform that activity. Now, each one of those has a number of duties within that, but if you don't understand those core essential duties of my job, then if I describe all of the other things, you will be confused about what I do. So I want you to be very clear about what you do and very succinct. And that should only take about 3 to 5 essential duties for me to understand the essential duties of what you do. I'd also like you to write this in a special way. Now, you see these examples say prepares monthly newsletters. Now, in those 3 words, you can probably get a pretty good picture of what that employee is doing. They're preparing something. And the decisions that are required are they need to decide the graphics, the layout, the length of the article, and so on and so forth. So you can get a picture with those 3 words what this person would be doing. Take a look at the next one as another example. Performs inventory spot checks and monthly counts of supplies in the warehouse. Now, with 3 words, performs inventory spot checks, you get a picture in your mind of a person probably running around a supply room with a clipboard or a computer determining whether there is enough supply for what the needs are. And so I'd like you to start off each sentence with an active verb like performs, or verifies, or develops, or directs, or manages, or compiles. Those are strong verbs, and they tell me a lot about what you do. Here are a couple of verbs that don't mean anything to me. Responsible for, oversees, acts as. These are words that I have no idea what they mean until you describe in a much longer sentence what's essential. So you can be very succinct in what you write by using active verbs. Now, on item 6 on page 4, required knowledges and skills. If you do something in your job, it probably requires you to know something or be skilled at something. Maybe you need to know bookkeeping. Maybe you need to know something about presentation skills. So these are the kinds of things that I want you to tell me about that you need to know or you need to be able to do in order to perform the essential duties that you've told me on the previous page. We've given you 10 spaces here as well, but I don't think you're going to need all of those, because most of the time, the kinds of knowledge and skills that you need to perform your work are confined to about 3 or 4 knowledges and skills. So please describe that to me. Now, on item 7 and on item 8, I'm asking you for your opinion about what you think the education and experience requirements are for your job at the entry level. In other words, at the starting point of your job when you first came into the job. Remember that time when you started the job, you had essentially the knowledge that you needed to perform it, but you weren't necessarily very good at it, and you needed some guidance from other people to make sure that you were doing it right. That's what I'm asking you for. I'm not asking you to tell me what the district has on file or what the union has on file as your requirements, but what you think would be required if you had to replace yourself and you needed to look for someone with the essential knowledge and skills, either in education or experience, in order to be able to perform the work at the beginning level. And then if there is a particular field of training that you should have your education in, please provide that. Now there are some jobs in item 9 that require you to be registered, certified, or licensed, generally by the federal government or the state government, in order for you to perform your work. And if that's required for your job, please indicate what those registrations, licenses, or certificates are so that I can get a sense of what that is. Please try not to use acronyms. Spell out those certificates or licenses or registrations so that I have an understanding. On item 10, machines, tools, and equipment, and I will also include software that is unique to your job or the jobs of other people that are similar to your work. So if you require a particular software package that you need to learn in order to operate, and it takes more than 30 minutes to learn so that you understand the ins and outs of all of the parts of that software, list that software. This is software or machines or tools or equipment that not everybody in the district needs to know how to operate or use, but is an essential requirement for you to perform your work. Now you'll notice on this one, we're asking for the amount of time that you spend doing that or using that tool or equipment or software. And this is a drop-down menu. You should just be able to click on that gray box, select the appropriate answer, and then it will populate that space. On item 11 on page 6, decision-making and judgments, I'm asking you to provide with me or to me a couple of kinds of decisions that you make in the normal course of your work, not the rare or unusual or strange kinds of decisions that you make in your job, the everyday kind of decisions. So if you go back to my job, for example, where I'm deciding whether I'm going to write a proposal, that's sort of an everyday occurrence. I look at an RFP, a request for a proposal, and I determine whether we have the qualifications to write that proposal and be competitive in the process. So that's a normal, everyday kind of decision that I make. It's not unusual, it's not unique, it's not the rare occurrence, it's an everyday kind of decision. So I'm asking you to give me 2 of those. And then when you make decisions, do you routinely check with your supervisor, follow standard procedures, use some discretion, or do you create and implement new solutions where there has not been a solution before? Finally, in the last set of sections in C below, you can check any and all of the boxes that apply to your job. On item 12 on page 7, there are physical factors, and there are several components to this question. Please check the box as appropriate to describe the character of your work, whether it's sedentary, light, medium, heavy, or very heavy work. And then in the bottom section, there are a number of physical activities that you may need to perform in order to do your work. And this is information about the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we're collecting this information so that the district has this information in the event that someone with a disability or a handicap applies for the job. We need to know whether they can perform that work or whether the district needs to make some reasonable accommodation for their handicap or disability. So there are a number of items called climbing, balancing, stooping, kneeling, crouching, etc., and we're asking for frequency and importance to your work. On page 8, working conditions, we're asking you to identify the conditions that surround your work. These are generally environmental conditions, hazardous, extreme temperatures, inadequate lighting, and so on and so forth, that surround the kind of work that you perform so that we can get a sense under the conditions that you perform the essential duties of your job. Finally, on question 14, additional comments. This is a blank space that you can provide answers or clarification on anything about your job that you think we have not asked. Once you have completed the questionnaire, we ask you to sign this. Now you can do this either manually or electronically. Electronically simply means typing in your name and then dating it. Now once you've completed the questionnaire, you should send it on to your supervisor. Now, for those supervisors, we ask them to complete this section only. So when you review your subordinates' questionnaires and you note that perhaps they haven't been clear enough or they've forgotten something, on page 10, this is the section where you can comment on what question that is and how you would clarify that question that the employee has filled out. We don't want you to complete or change anything that the employee has filled out on their questionnaire. That's their information. This section is for you. Then when you are done with those comments as a supervisor, we ask you to share those comments with your subordinate and then sign or check the box as most appropriate, and then all of you will once again sign the questionnaire. Again, you can simply type your name. Now, we've given you employees until January 11th to complete the questionnaire and then on to your supervisor. We then have given the supervisor until January 25th to have their completed questionnaires reviewed and sent into the Human Resources Department. What they will do is they will assemble them, make sure that we have all of the questionnaires in hand from all of the employees, and then they will ship them to our offices either electronically or physically if they are completed by paper and pencil. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can complete this questionnaire. First of all, do it over several periods of time, 20 minutes at a time. This way you will remember things about your job over those different days that you've completed the questionnaire, and that will be helpful to having a complete and thorough questionnaire. Secondly, if you share a job with someone else and you are doing essentially the same work as someone else with the same title and the same supervisor, you can complete this questionnaire together. All I ask is that you have a front page and all the signature pages for every individual that's included in the process. Finally, I'd like you to complete this in very simple English. Try not to use flowery language. Don't try to create extensive explanations about what you do or create try to find the key words to the language. Simple English, straightforward, honest answers are the best way to complete the questionnaire. Quite frankly, the more fluff we get in the questionnaire, the more we suspect that perhaps there's something that we don't know about the job. And it's better if you just provide that information as simply and honestly as you possibly can. Now, this questionnaire should take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to complete if you do it over several days. But please try to do it as completely and as simply as possible so that our people, Mike Verdorn and Chuyang Pan, can read those questionnaires and in a short period of time understand what you do for the district. It is only then that we can take that information and determine the proper title, and then we can determine what the proper rate of pay is by comparing that to other jobs within other organizations and within the district. Thank you very much for your attention.